Hi, my name is Rabbi Dunner. Welcome to my weekly Erev Shabbos Torah. Thank you so much for watching. Let me quote you a posuk in this week's Sedra in Parshat Eikev. Ato Yisrael, ma Hashem Elokecha shoyel me'imach, ki im leyiras Hashem Elokecha, lo leches b'chol derachav ulehava oisai, ve'lavoid es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha. And now, Israel, what does Hashem, your God, want from you? Only this, to fear Hashem, your God, to walk in His paths, to love Him, and to serve Hashem, your God, with all your heart and all your soul. Now, this is one of the most discussed psukim in Parshat Eikev. There's no commandment that directly commands us to have Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven. But Moshe Rabbeinu tells us in this pasuk that this is all God really wants from us. It is number one on the list. What Moshe is saying is that at the root of every mitzvah, before anything else, there has to be yirah. It sounds so simple. If we can just get our hands on the yirah thing, everything else will fall into place. The problem is, yirah is not so easy. Moshe makes it sound as if it is the easiest thing in the world. Maybe in his world it is. But in ours, it's just about the hardest thing to achieve. The Talmud in Berachot Lamed Gimel Amud Beis quotes this pasuk and asks exactly this question: Yirat Shamayim milsa zutrasahi? Is Yirat Shamayim such an easy thing, such a simple matter? So the Gemara answers in Legabe Moshe milsa zutrasahi. Yes, for Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a very easy thing. It's very simple. This Gemara is kind of strange, right? Instead of resolving the problem, the Gemara just makes it worse. I mean, come on. Just because Yirat Shamayim is easy for Moshe Rabbeinu, who says it can be easy for us? Why does Moshe suggest that Yirat Shamayim is simple? And why does the Gemara make things worse by saying that for Moshe Rabbeinu it was so simple? Let me tell you a story. It's about a rabbi called Rabbi Yitzchok Zilber. Rabbi Yitzchok Zilber was a great rabbi. He died just about 17 years ago in 2004. Really, he truly was extraordinary. He was born in Russia just before the Russian Revolution in 1917, but despite the revolution and the terrible antisemitism, his family never abandoned their Judaism. If anything, they strengthened their Judaism. As a young man, Rav Zilber's father taught him Torah, and he completed the Talmud, listen to this, several times during his years in Russia. And when he became an adult, he also taught Torah to others. Now, during the Second World War, Rav Zilber was imprisoned in a Soviet gulag, but he managed to remain Shomer Shabbos despite the inhumane conditions. The story of his life is like a Russian spy novel. He was always hiding from the KGB, one step ahead of the Soviet authorities. Eventually, in 1972, he was allowed to emigrate to Israel, and that's the story I want to share with you today. As he walked off the aeroplane in Lud Airport, as it was called in those days, he was greeted by an Israeli immigration official or Jewish agency official. Rabbi Zilber was so excited. He was totally overwhelmed by his arrival in Eretz Yisrael, the country he had dreamed about all his life. He grabbed the Israeli official. He hugged him. There were tears flowing down his cheeks. "It is so wonderful to be here," he said. "To talk to a Jew like a Jew in a Jewish country. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Hashem." The man, this official, was a bit taken aback. He smiled politely. He said, "Shalom." "Please tell me," Rabbi Zilber said to him, and he was speaking so intensely. "Please tell me. For years I've been struggling with this problem. There's a difficult piece of gemara in Maseches Kedushin I can't understand. Rashi makes no sense, and Tosfos just makes things worse. Please, can you explain the Gemara to me?" He looked at the guy expectantly, eyes shining with anticipation. The man looked back at Rabbi Zilber as if he was nuts. What was this madman talking about? To be honest, he'd never opened up a Gemara in his life. "Ani lo yodea," he said. Rav Zilber was surprised, but he took it in his stride and just asked another question. "Maybe," he said, "you can explain how you understood the third Mishnah in the last chapter in Uktzin. I just can't understand what it means." Again, he looked eagerly at the Israeli official. Mishnah? Uktzin? What are you talking about? The guy was totally not on the same wavelength. Rabbi Zilber, who had risked his life every day for decades to teach and study Torah in Russia, was horrified. He was shocked. How was this possible? You mean to tell me, he said to the guy, that you live here in Israel and have the ability to learn Torah, and you don't know the Gemara in Kiddushin? You've never heard of the Mishnah in Uktzin? And Rav Zilber began to cry bitter tears. When I heard this story years after it happened, I think I heard it in the 1990s, I was told by the person who said it that the Israeli official was so moved by Rabbi Zilber's simple sincerity, he began to study Torah. Now, to be fair, I don't know if that part is true. But whether it is true or not, the story is so powerful for another reason. For Rav Zilber, the study of Torah under difficult conditions came to him so naturally that he simply couldn't understand how someone would not learn Torah or observe Judaism if there was no impediment for them to do so. He just couldn't get his head around it. And maybe that's what the Gemara in Berachot is telling us. It wasn't about the advice Moshe was giving. It was about the fact that he was giving it, and that for him, what he was suggesting was the most natural thing in the world. It was important for an entire nation to see a man for whom Yirat Shamayim was the simplest and most rudimentary aspect of life, merely a stepping stone to everything else. Moshe's message may have been about Yirat Shamayim for him, but for us, it is about something else completely. It is about sincerity, about the belief that the impossible is actually possible. To us ordinary folk, it is important to see someone whose Jewish observance is as simple and as graceful, so that it is just like second nature. If we didn't know that someone like Moshe Rabbeinu existed, we would never aspire to be the best. To us, Yirat Shamayim may be a struggle, but it is imperative that the benchmark of our goals is Moshe Rabbeinu, namely, someone to whom Yirat Shamayim comes naturally. Let me wish you Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for watching. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.